Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to address you today. The Human Rights Council is meeting at a time when human rights are severely challenged as norms and in practice. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights set out to protect the unifying vision of respect for fundamental rights and freedoms for all. The greatness of the human rights vision and the reason its impact has been so enormous is that it puts the individual human person at the center. But it establishes that the ultimate duty of the state is to respect the rights of the individual without discrimination, to protect these rights against abuse, and to ensure that everyone's basic human needs are fulfilled so that the potential of every individual can be fully realized. The human rights movement is a movement for freedom in the deepest possible sense. Its goal is to ensure that every one of us can flourish fully in all our diversity. But the international human rights system is not just a vision. It's also a blueprint for how that vision can be achieved. It sets up a system with individuals as right holders and states as duty bearers accountable for violations. It has inspired an expanding infrastructure for accountability at the national, regional and international level. Sweden accepts scrutiny of our own record and is always ready to engage in dialogue on our human rights obligations. Later this session, we will hear a report of a special rapporteur on freedom of religion and belief, who we welcomed to Sweden last year. Yet even as we celebrated the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights a few months ago, we know that this system is being undermined. Russia's ruthless aggression against Ukraine, in blatant violation of international law and the UN Charter, is an obvious and horrific example. We are witnessing efforts to weaken accountability, to dilute and divert the obligations of states. We are seeing an increase in extrajudicial executions, torture, sexual and gender-based violence, efforts to turn back the clock on gender equality, the rights of LGBTQ+ persons and sexual and reproductive rights. Harassment of human rights defenders and NGOs. A few days ago we heard the appalling news of the death of one of the bravest voices of his generation, Alexei Navalny. The Russian authorities are responsible for his death. His work for democracy will carry on. We see the shrinking of civic space, the suppression of independent media and judiciaries. Not long ago, I met with Belarusian civil society activists who spoke to me of their hopes for democracy and human rights. Hopes curtailed but shared by human rights defenders in all too many countries in the world. And in too many countries we witness arbitrary detentions. I am firmly committed to securing the release of Swedish citizens arbitrarily imprisoned for political reasons. Our efforts on that behalf will not stop. And most alarming of all, we are witnessing more armed conflicts than at any time since 1945. This calls on us to respect human rights and international law in conflict. The horrific attacks by Hamas against Israel on the 7th of October caused civilian deaths, appalling sexual crimes, and ongoing violations against the hostages, who must be released without conditions. Together with our partners in the EU, Sweden recognizes Israel's right to defend itself within the scope of international law. I have called from the start of this conflict for respect for international humanitarian law. We see an appalling civilian toll in Gaza, including on children. The high number of civilian casualties in Gaza raises serious questions about the respect for international humanitarian law. These norms must be respected. Mr. President, the international human rights system is one of humanity's greatest achievements, and it requires our sustained support in order to continue to function. It needs us to speak up in its defense when it is challenged. Sweden will continue to stand together with all our global partners who stand ready to tackle this challenge, because we are convinced that only a world that respects human rights can deliver a sustainable and prosperous future. In these times of conflict, polarization and crisis, there is simply no acceptable alternative. Thank you.